So next we're going to get in these new chain guides, and what you do with these, it's a lot easier with the side of the engine off. It's a pain in the backside to do when it's in. Take that one down, settle it off up there. Now this one here has got the dent at the back for the detent that will go in. So if I actually let go of this little fella, he'll drop in. So what I'm going to do is just balance him in there and get the fixing. We'll put the fixing in, and let's get that started by hand. So we know he's not going anywhere. Cool. Get the other one. Here it is. Get him in. Again, these are torqued up to 28 Newton meters, but I won't be doing that by hand. This one's just a stationary one, and then the idea behind this one is your hydraulic tensioner moves in and out and drives it. So we'll get him in place as well at the same time, so we can all see what happens with that. Okay, next thing we do is chain tensioner. Now everybody who has an R53 gets all excited about chain tensioners, about whether they work or not. I've probably done 100,000 miles in several different R53s, and I've never needed to change one of these other than when I built the engine. What I do is when I am building the engine is I have this pot and I have it just full of engine oil. It's one of the recommendations from Mini that when you actually buy these, you can press it in a bath of oil. I don't know whether that's given me the longevity, and I'm not entirely sure what causes them to fail, especially as they're very, very simple devices. There's nothing complicated going on in them at all. It pressurizes, puts oil behind the tensioner, and that keeps the chain out, and when you drive harder it will push it out more. So unless these are getting blocked and the filters aren't doing a particularly good job, and actually the reason they're failing is because the back end of them is blocking up, I guess what I need to do is take some time and think about taking one apart. I won't do that tight because I want as much room as possible when it comes to doing the chain. So I don't recommend that you change the chain every time you do one of these engine builds. However, this chain here is an 80,000 miler chain, and this one here, the silver one in front of it, is brand new. If I line the two up at the top and then go down, I don't know whether you can see that on the camera, but that is the difference. Hang on, let's get it close. If I actually put it on a peg, probably give us a better indication of what it is. We'll just use this bar here on a torque wrench. So let's align those so they're sitting right. So in front, what you'll see, and it's not a hell of a lot, it's a small amount, that obviously I can skew that by moving my tool back and forth, but you just have to go with me that this chain that's done 80,000 miles is slightly longer than the chain that's done none. So we're in there, they're not expensive. Now's the time to change it. And that's a good catch, and that's why I should put my tools back. So on the side of these chains, you get, depending on which model you get slightly different marks. You get two coppers down there, and then you get another copper up there. They're not actually made of copper, they're just that colour. That'll line up with, down at the bottom here, there are two arrows, and on your cam sprocket, it's going to be another arrow. So all we want to do is feed this. It's easier to actually go from bottom to top, oddly enough. And then we'll drop this round on here, and we'll get it lined up on the correct teeth first, and then we can move it. So correct teeth at the bottom, that's cool, and then we can put that over. Cam socket, this is the old one, and it's got a marker there, it's got an arrow. So with the new one, again, what we want to do is we want to look for our marking on here. There it is, your arrow. So we know now that what we should be aligning this top mark up here with top dead centre is with that. So drop the wheel in, and my first thing is get that little fella aligned. Okay, and then we get the chain onto him. Now obviously what you're seeing here is this is dropping off every so often as I'm moving it, and this is the problem a lot of people have. They claim that they've skipped a tooth, dropped a tooth whilst they've been doing it, and I completely agree that while you've got it in this state you could actually drop a tooth off. But once the oil housing goes on for the oil pump, you actually get this lip here at the bottom of the oil pump which sits on here and actually holds everything together. So he goes on like that, and actually the lip is so close that it stops it dropping off. So I'm not entirely sure how people are getting this to skip, but I can show this a little bit more clearly. If I was to take the old chain Let's put the sprocket on the old chain. Let's see if we can do a quick demo of this. And then we'll hold that concentricity there. We'll get in front of the camera, see if we can get in. So actually, you can see here there's probably about 2 mil between the, let's get him series line. Is that concentric? That's concentric. So actually there's nowhere here for the chain to jump off. So I do question how people are actually getting these chains to jump a tooth at the bottom. Jumping a tooth at the top, sure. If you've got all this extra slack in here because your tensioner's not in, then yeah, you will be dropping it. But once you pull this back up to your cam height as well, then you know, it's still a difficult thing to do. So I'm not entirely sure what people are doing when they're pulling these things apart. But getting them to jump a tooth, especially on the bottom end of it, is very difficult. Okay, so the camshaft. This camshaft is a Newman 246396. It's been in the car previous to this. So what I do with this is I will drop the back end in, and then I will turn the cam so it matches up with this pulley. And what we're trying to do is get them on together. There we go. ARP fixing. Again, let's take the ARP mentality, put some of their jizz on it. There we go. Let's just get that started just down the bottom. That way it will work its way up. Let's get this in. Just slide the washer down so we can get the head on. And wow, I'm sure this bolt, the head of this bolt is insane. Look at the original one compared to that. What a monster. Again, you guarantee, you know, you're going to get there and it's going to be something imperial. I'm already excited about that. I do something naughty when I put these together. I'm fully aware it's naughty and I'm cool with it. There's 2 flats on the back here, the back of the cam. I actually use those 2 flats to hold everything. So I take off the cap number 1, just move it to the side, and I'll basically put an adjustable spanner over the back to hold the flats, and I'll torque it up against that. Obviously you can get the tool that fits in here and locks it down, but this is a method that I've used a few times. Never had a problem doing it, so I'm going to continue doing it. Even though I'm fully aware it's not the right thing to be doing, I'm still going to rock it. Right, obviously I don't want to be turning the whole engine over, so this is the point where we grab my wrong tool for the job, go on there, and then we'll lock him up against that. Okay, right. Okay, it's a lot easier in the car because you don't have to try and hold the engine as well as everything else. So let's take that off there. Again, wrong tool for the job. You should use the clamps that bolt in. That said, the bolt versus this pin versus the way that it all holds together, the relationship is still travelling through the same boss, and ultimately you're actually holding it less by these 2 pins than you are across those 2 flats. So all I do, lay it on here, start at the far end, and I just want to move them along so they're just sitting on top of the valves, and we get them in. Once they're in the right sort of place, you'll notice that they'll sit down quite nice. Okay, I'll get them ones in. Get the front in. This one's the trickier one because you've got to fit around all these tubes. So you might decide that actually some of them have been positioned a little bit over time. This has notches as well that fits around the tube, which is useful. But as you can see, they have not quite a mind of their own, but you might as well call it. Right, let's just push that along a bit. There we go. Move that one there, and then again, just lift them till they find their own home. Okay. Right. Move that around. That's all looking reasonable. Something's not right here. Okay, we're just not sitting on the cam. We're sitting on the caps. And there should be just one more. Okay, what's stopping us sitting? So we're sitting, we're sitting, we're sitting, we're sitting. Aha, there we go. We're not sitting, and we're not sitting. There we go. Everything's nice. Okay, So these will get torqued down to 30. What I'm going to do here, you don't need it for these ones. They're not ARP bolts, they're standard bolts, but I just like to just give them a small amount of lubrication just to get them going. Stay there. It is a really easy engine, the R53. It's nice. It's old technology without any of the fuss. Obviously that's its downside as well, which is why we're limited to the power we really can get out of these, but it's a nice hard wearing engine, so that alone should help us. Right. Let's just get rid of that. Right, so I'm going to do same as we've done everywhere else. I'm just going to nip these up by hand, no tools really. Just want to make sure that as I'm pulling this down, I want to keep everything going in nice, no crossed heads, nothing like that. Keep it nice and tidy, keep it nice and tight. Right, again, this best practice, just follow around and pin it all up. You might find, depending on where you've got your valves set, that you might actually be compressing some of the valves at this point. I think I am. I think the inlet and one of the exhausts is just slightly open, so I might be off at a slight angle. It doesn't look it. Okay, is that okay? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we are just sitting on some of them slowly, but that's okay. We'll get this one in and then we'll get the torque wrench. We'll go around 30 newton meters on each one, no worries. So what we got, nearly 30, so whatever I did at last was nearly at 30, so that's cool. Do 30, lock it off, and I'm just going to pull these down. And then we'll go around and we'll just torque them up. Maybe not wear the ratchet away. Oh yeah. Be lovely to have one of those guns at the moment that can drive and torque. Okay, right, starting from here again, as we were. Nice and smooth, and we're going to go up to 30. There's one. 2. 3. 4 clicks. 5. 6. 7. And 8. That must mean only 2 left if there's 10. Oh, there is 10. Okay, cool. Right, there's the top end done. No worries. So, what I'm doing now is get this oil pump built up and we can get him in. So, as per the introduction, I'm going to be using new Gerotor oil. That is the innards of your oil pump. The way it works is this little one sits on your crank and it takes it round like that. As it does that, these little voids inside here basically create an airtight gap and they'll pull your fluid round, so they'll basically be carrying your oil. So we want to get them in. The oil pump on the R53 doesn't require priming. That said, I'm going to prime it. Let's get some lube around the outside of that. Cool. Okay. And also on its faces. And same with the little gerotor wheel, just the faces that it's going to be rubbing against metal, and then all of these voids all the way around the outside. Just a dab. It'll just keep everything happy for the few seconds whilst we don't have oil pressure running around the engine. Okay, so here we go. That is the gerotor oil pump. You've got your bypass in there. Last time I built this, I didn't change that. And I didn't change the gerotor wheels last time either. There was just no point. So the only thing left to change on here now is to pop out these manky old seals and then replace them with some lovely new seals. They're not old. Well, they're probably a few years old, but they've not done many miles. And it probably is. They've not done many miles, so... let's get these new, let's get in there, let's just rip it open, great. So that's it, 2 new rings that go in there, and the idea behind them is they seal up to the block there and there, so as you're pushing everything through they keep it going good. So what we're going to do is get our screws, and I am reusing the screws that I originally had. Let's get this one. So just going to take that housing, and all we need to do is take this oil pump, place it onto the housing. There's some dowel locations to help you get it right. And then I've just got to run around and do all the screws up on the inside. So that's what it'll look like on the inside once it's built up. So I'll just grab my bag of screws and let's get this assembled. Where's my screws?
Oh, that's interesting. Where are my screws? Where are my screws?
Oh, where are my screws? Okay, so just little torque screws. These ones I am reusing. So all I do, tap my engine oil that I've got and I'll feed it into the outlet port of the... there we go, let's get a few pumps of that in. The majority of this will just end up on the floor anyway very shortly, but it's just got a nice oil running around it. So what we're looking to do now, making sure everything's in and it's all, just making sure this pump is moving freely. Yeah, okay. So that pump in there obviously wants to be concentric. Want to make sure we've got those 2 in the right place. Just get a bit of lubrication from that oil that's in there just on these seals, help them seal. So what we're looking to do, I'm going to locate this on the side of the engine, and it's just a case of lining up the keyways, making sure that it all fits. Right, there's the top and bottom flat, and they line up with the crank. So, go on, there we go. So all we're going to do, and I am reusing bolts here, I'm just going to run these round. Okay, now I'm just going to go around and just make sure these are tight where I want them to be. They don't need to be super tight. They're only compressing a tiny little seal. Get on. I've built enough of them now, I just forget what these outside ones look like. I just keep putting on whatever I've got available. Okay, so lastly on the side goes my old belt tensioner. Unfortunately this thing is a bit manky actually, I probably should have given it a clean. You may notice in the video, depending on how much it bothers me, that this suddenly becomes a nice clean unit or even gets replaced completely. Let's see how I can live with it. I think the next thing for us to do is consider getting this ATI damper on. Now, on the back of this, you can see they've got a keyway, which is great fun, but I don't know what the benefit is of that on the R53 engine, because we don't really have anything. What we do have is a top dead centre mark, so maybe that's what we'll go ahead and align with. Let's go. Is this going to cause problems? I seem to think it will. I'm very surprised if my engine doesn't start turning over as we get towards the bottom of this install. Oh, there we go. This little bolt here, the bolt that they supplied, when they say drive it as far as it goes, it's about ½ an inch off. It's before you get home, so you think that you're doing it up, so you're not. So you want to get back onto that OEM bolt, and then, you know, I'm actually able to hold the crank back whilst tightening this up. So I think, other than the fact I can't torque it, and I'll torque that finally when it's in the engine. We're on there. We've got it. It looks, eyeball anyway, it looks like it's about right for the tensioner. So this is good news. So our next thing to do is, it's got to be either putting the strainer on, or it's got to be putting the rocker cover on. And I think at this moment in time, because I want to do some welding in the sump, we're going to get this rocker cover on, which is going to be great. Ooh, this is getting heavy now. To think when we were younger, we stupidly tried pulling these engines out without any engine cranes or anything. I mean, even turning it over now is a bit of a chore. So there we go. Right, this side still needs a thermostat housing going on, but I think as everything else is all torqued up there now, it's worthwhile getting that and putting it on. So I'll just put a set of gloves on. I'll put the gloves on to keep my hands as dirty as they are and stop the cross contamination going onto this. So I've got my rocker cover. It's a super one. It's painted red. Obviously it's missing the area here where you'd normally find your coil pack, and that's because I'm going to run individual coils. What we're doing is we're just going to close all this off and hope that we've missed nothing inside it. Okay, so what I'll do now, on the top, I've got some new fancy bolts coming. Proper job, stainless steel with the proper spacers and everything in. They're replicas of the mini units, identical, but they're all in stainless steel, so they won't rust. But I'm just going to chuck in a standard one for the time being, just to stop this falling off. That's what the standard ones look like. They're yeah, they're a bit grotty. These ones could be saved actually. I could take the spacers off and reuse them, but all I want to do at the moment is put these in enough to keep the rocker cover on, so when I tip it over I don't then think, I shouldn't have done that. Let's get these end caps on. Look at this, very quickly looking like an engine again, rather than a mountain of parts, which is nice. I'll get my workbench back as well, so start doing something different. The next, very soon, we'll be getting the engine crane in here and getting this lifted up, get the flywheel on, get the clutch on, get the gearbox on, and then I've got to get it in the car. Yeah, I know. You don't do that with a torque wrench, and I'm not using it to a full torque either. These essentially just bottom out. They're just cover caps with an O-ring on. Nothing wild going on there. Spark plugs, might as well throw them in now. I can't help it, I just want to get them in. At least I know where they are then when I need them. Does mean if I need to turn the engine over by hand, it's going to be a lot more work though. Four. Just need to get the dust off the top of this, I think. There's still lots more to go with this engine though, even though it's pretty much built. All the ancillaries and stuff to go on. You'll notice I look in the spark plug tube every time, and This is one of those wonderful Halfords units that the rubber insert pulls out. I probably should just take a bit of super glue and that would sort it. Okay, don't need to go any tighter than that, just that. Obviously that'll be a problem if I try and run it. Right, I've just got this nice clean cloth here. I'll just take that surface dust off from where it's been sitting there. Oh yeah, I have to get myself a nice little plaque to go on there. As everybody coins them, R8 coil packs. Need to decide as I make the wiring loom whether I'm going to be running these things straight as I'm doing them now, or whether I'm actually going to run them at an angle. Right, next thing I want to do, just get this thermostat on, thermostat housing. So we're going to be running the M7 thermostat. It's a slightly colder opening. It opens at 82 degrees C or 180 degree F. So first thing we have to do is get this gasket onto here. Now there is a way that this all fits together. There is basically 3 different placed notches in here, and you have to align them all. Unfortunately you can't really see them without unfolding it, and they didn't put any detail on the outside to make it any easier, so you have to essentially put the time in to find out which of the where the notches actually are. Follow this. Right, so that's that. Just making sure there is no bulges. No, that's fine. So now what you do is you take your housing and essentially big one, big hole, and small one, small hole. So once they're in, you're down to your next stage, which is just bolting this into the head. The thermostat housing and the thermostat in with the new gasket. Just take the fixings. Again, these are reused fixings. I don't see the point in changing these ones, and we're just going to bolt them up to the head. Do that. I can't remember what these are, but if we talk to 10 for the moment, I think they're a bit more than 10. I think they were 20, but I'll double check the book. Also, if you want to get engine build specs, newtis.info is a fantastic website. Right, so what we're looking for is thermostat housing. Thermostat housing is 12, so going up to 10 wasn't a bad guess. Generally, any of these M6s that are going into aluminium, you're going to be in the 10-12 mark. You don't want to go too much more than that, because the last thing you want to do is end up ripping it all apart and having to helicoil the thing to put it back together again. Okay, so what I want to do now is get the water pump fitted and the alternator, but to do that I just need to get the hose clamps on this and get this fitted. So obviously, again, as with the theme, changing over a turbo, you can you lose your water pump with the supercharger, so you can just go ahead and fit a standard Cooper water pump. Now, I have in the past run electric and it's been good, but now I've decided that I'm going to go back and I'm going to stick with just a mechanical pump. It's something that's just a little bit easier, and also don't have the same control over it as I would do normally. I think this Cooper water pump is such a good unit that later on in life I won't regret having this one in place. I can fit this knowing if it ever plays up, I can go and just buy a spare straight off the shelf. No worries, no modifications. The previous pump I had was a PWM controlled modified unit off a BMW. Particularly good unit. Once you figured out actually how it was controlled, I had the ECU controlling it, and bleeding it was an absolute joy. So I'll get that thing bolted on, and then we can get onto the alternator. In fact, with those 2 bolts in, I could actually just put the alternator in now. Should I do that? Yeah, why not? Let's chuck the alternator on. Okay, so the alternator goes where the old supercharger used to go, and just bolts on. And again, just as it does on the W10 engine, all the fixings are there. You don't need to worry about aligning anything. Just get your bolts and off you go. Let's get him in. Then we'll get the water pump firmly bolted into place. At some point I'll have to start thinking about how I'm actually going to move this engine out of here. That's a problem for another time. So thank you for watching this build. I hope it's been entertaining. I hope you've learned something again from watching these series, and I hope to see you in the next one. Thank you very much. See you soon.